having
fun.
What was I doing?
Fun.
Pasta? Okay, sorry. I resent pasta.
Here
I resent pasta because you, first of all, don't use that word lightly.
Sorry,
Second of all, Jonny and I weren't on vacation like Pasta said in one of your videos.
Cleaning the kitchen.
We were not. We were working literally nonstop.
No, it's cleaner than it was before. I had to clean out the refrigerator. If you haven't looked inside,
Cam, you're a great cook. You're not the best cleaner.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We're gonna have to get.
I'm a better cleaner than anybody here, and I was working my ass off while you guys were out and having fun. In Seattle,
having fun. Okay, fam.
Okay, I drove you to
That's
Vegas.
Not just because
drove
Seattle has
back
wonderful
by
people.
myself.
Doesn't mean we were having fun. By the way, thank you to all our Seattle fams who took care of us while we were there. I'm going to say greater Seattle area because it's not precisely in Seattle, but all the way from Tacoma to Olympia to just everywhere in between. That it was awesome. Everybody there is super nice. And I already told Pasta I'm leaving him for
stop.
Seattle.
You're not going.
I am.
Okay, what's up, Ruben?
Rick LaFave wants me to move there.
All right.
I'm all for
Oz. I love you, Oz.
I'm leaving.
And
the
I'd like
trees,
you to say,
the water, the people.
well, let me just say this. If you're going to go, I just have to wish you good luck and everything like that. I love the fact that you're my partner, that we can have these nuanced conversations and go crazy and get serious about the politics we're passionate about.
Somebody mentions Tibet or the Uyghurs, Pasta goes off on them. So he can't have a...
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Shout out to you.
Yeah, I know, right? We're gonna educate people today on what's really going on over there. Because once again, I don't want to become China. We're gonna talk about it. But let's start off the show right. Welcome back, my humans, to the Convo Couch. I am Pasta.
You are Pasta. I am Fiorella.
And Johnny Sue is still spinning on those ones and twos. We want to thank you for coming on in. There's only 42 of you right now. Guys, we feel like we're getting suppressed heavily on YouTube. Our subscriptions are going down. Almost 800 of them gone down in the last 2 days.
Doesn't make sense because we were out there. We were getting, people coming in and watching. So I don't know. It's off depending on the website you go to. But, you guys have seen what happened to Papi Chulo Richard Medhurst and how they try to demonetize his channel, where they demonetize every video we put out that has anything to do with imperialism, any video that has anything to do with coronavirus, any video that has anything to do with anything attacking the Democratic Party gets heavily demonetized. It's so strange. A lot of the things that we were covering live in Seattle, boom, like demonetized. So make sure you're subscribed, make sure you click the bell for the notifications, and make sure you're one of our Patreon members. No matter how much you can donate, whatever it is will help us keep going, because we really like doing the on-the-ground coverage as well as doing what we do here. But we definitely I specifically definitely like going everywhere and going on the ground and being in all the action.
Taking your vacations. Wow.
Vacation while I'm working. Yes. I literally, first of all, unfortunately, I couldn't experience the Seattle music scene because of coronavirus. So everything was closed. Literally, I had good fish fry. That's it.
Well, let me just say, you're amped today. You're ready to rock and roll. Let's go. I know you missed me and you were gone, and you wanted to get back on this couch and do this show right here. And I want to thank the 100. You missed this show, right? I'm part of it, so you got to kind of miss, the back and forth with Pasta and Fee. Everybody loves it. And Johnny over there is spinning. I think we make a great duo. I'm just going to, point that out. By the way,
you guys, Johnny released the Joshua Collins interview. We went all south to Tacoma and interviewed Josh there. It was a great interview. He has a lot of great ideas. I definitely all very, very much in line with his politics and where he's at with the Democratic Party. We're done with them. I'm definitely on that. But he has a different opinion than some of the other people we interviewed. So we definitely wanted to show that variety and have a more casual type of interview in these candidates' homes, in this candidates' district. So that was really cool. So check it out. It's out.
Definitely. And I like the part when you asked him about all these NGOs pumping in money in different areas in South America, Central America, over what we saw in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And just last week, I released a video. Fam had me doing homework. She says, make sure you put your videos out. Well, I had to talk strongly about what went on in the Senate floor when they had the chance to end the Afghan war.
Yeah.
They had a chance to kneecap the AUMF, which we've talked about, Fam, is just an awful, awful abdication away from Congress to the president's hand to be able to wage war whenever they want. Like George Bush said, I have the right to go after the guy because he went after my father, and then he okayed torture, whatnot, but he had the right to go everywhere. Well, Rand Paul and Thomas Udell of New Mexico put up an amendment the other day that would actually kneecap the AAUMF and actually essentially end the war in Afghanistan, bringing the troops home, and also, fam, giving them a $2,500 bonus each soldier when they come home to help them get acclimated back into the society and whatnot. And it was a great thing. And he called everybody out. He says, now you get a chance to vote up or down. Are you for the war? Are you against the war? Well, as we know in my video, fam, and you people have probably seen out there, they shot down and they tabled the amendment. The yay vote was to table the amendment. Dianne Feinstein, Mark Warner, Mr. Murphy of Connecticut, a lot of Democrats there joined the ranks of a lot of establishment Republicans. And it was 4 Republicans that moved away from the pack to say, let's get this on there. Let's end the war. It's a shame, fam, but I think we have to start talking about what's going on in Afghanistan because it's become too much silent in the background. We've been there for 20 plus years. Rand Paul even talked about there are people who are fighting the war now that weren't even born when this war started. So your thoughts on the vote? I didn't get to talk to you about it. Your thoughts on what went on in the vote on the floor. What do you think? And what are your opinions before we get into the real reason what's going on in Afghanistan, why we're there, and we'll talk a little bit more about it.
I just think that people really bought into the whole, we need to defend our country. We need to, look at what these people did. They're going to try to take over. I really think people bought into that.
Yeah.
And I really think that it did a lot of damage. And that's why we see how U.S. exceptionalism and, also, even when you talk negatively about countries like China and Russia, a lot of negative things exist about those countries. Nobody's denying that China has really, their speech is censored a lot. And nobody's denying that Russia has a very nationalist right-wing government. But a lot of that exist as a result of U.S. imperialism and the way we have maintained our power. Obviously, when you're talking about world power, somebody is trying to come up with the power. So if we don't have it, people's fears are, well, somebody else might have it. You know what I mean? Anything could happen. But I think if we work towards diplomacy and non-interventionism and let people handle their own business, I think that is the way to go and to diffuse this new Cold War. And so, I think it just constantly, the media, the propaganda are constantly trying to get you to hate other world powers. And at that point, they wanted war in the Middle East for opium. So, of course, they wanted you to hate and think that these were all terrorists and that we needed to go to war. And so that's how they get people to jump into, I'm fighting for my country, democracy, and it's all not for that.
Thank you for the people over on ROKFIN, and yeah, fam, you got it right. You know what I'm saying? They manufacture this consent for us doing the things we want to do. Oh, we have to stop them. They're an authoritarian country. Right. Well, most of their authoritarian ways are stopping Western influence from coming into their country and changing that facet. And also, what we do constantly geopolitically to these countries to fight them is really, really disgusting and sick. And what we talk about the Uyghurs in Xinjiang. Well, there's a big fundamentalist activist, movement, there, where there's a lot of Wahhabist Salafists that are pumping money in there via Saudi Arabia, via the United States. So China's trying to handle that. So when you hear the words of, oh, they're jailing these Uyghurs simply because they're Muslim, that is a lie. They have a problem over there with fundamentalism, and a lot of those soldiers from that area went to Syria to fight, to kill American soldiers, and they're being funded by American interests, Western interests, Saudi Arabian interests, that monarchy we prop up. So that's why we have to point that out there. Are they handling it in the right way? Probably not. They're probably being authoritarian AF, but that's the problem, that we never mention the fact that there's Western influence in there.
Yeah. Foreign policy is a very muddled and complex thing. It's not good guys versus bad guys. It's everybody. There are no good guys.
So let's talk about this. Now that we're staying in Afghanistan, says Dianne Feinstein, it's time to start documenting what's going on there, the money that's wasted, the lives that are lost.
How many people told us we'd be out of Afghanistan? How many presidents?
A lot.
Since? Well, at least 2, right?
I went over the actual troop levels there. Obama had the surge for 4 years, and we had an enormous amount of troops in there in Afghanistan for 4 years of his presidency, 5 years of his presidency. So to say it's just Republicans, it's a lie. It's both parties. It wasn't George Bush, Obama, continue on with those policies. And the whole thing that's really flared the situation up, and even the decision in the House, which was a panel to put more hurdles up for Donald Trump to kind of pull out of Afghanistan, they've been standing by this Russian Bountygate story, fam. This whole Russian Bountygate story that Russians are now paying bounties to jihadists to kill American soldiers. Well, number one, it's full of shit because they really don't have sources that are really explaining that. And number two, it's such a hypocritical statement because why are we in there in the first place? Now, I just want to point out just a couple years ago, I believe American soldiers were receiving a paycheck when hundreds of Russians were killed in Syria. So pretty much our government has paid to have Russians killed. Remember? So this is something I put up right here. This is just recently. A couple hundred Russians are killed in February in a U.S. assault in Syria. So, you know, they're saying this narrative that the Russians are coming in there and they're trying to kill our soldiers and just trying to make this fake freaking element up to keep this Cold War going against Russia and to deflect from the fact that the Democratic Party is just always going to Russia no matter what to blame them for all their problems rather than looking into their own votes, which they did the other day when they shot down a chance to end this war.
Yeah. So. I mean, 100%. I mean, again, it's just manufacturing more consent against Russia. And like, it eventually leads to these people hating us. We foment the hatred towards Western imperialism, ironically, by continuing to act on it. So the more we vilify other countries, the more these countries and these people that may have not necessarily hated us will begin to really hate us because we continue to weaponize our democracy as a means of going in and invading these countries or sanctioning them in ways that hurts them, because sanctioning is an act of war still. Even doing things like that is an act of war. People don't realize that it's economically paralyzing to a country.
Oh, yeah.
So they can't operate as such, and so then they're on defense mode. It's kind of like what Israel does to the Palestinians. They're like, oh, look, Hamas. What do you want people to do if you're constantly attacking them, if you're constantly promoting lies and propaganda against them? They have very little to work with. They're going to attack you back, and so that's why this continues.
Yeah,
endlessly.
And sanctions are a form of censorship. It's saying you can't listen to this, you can't buy this, you can't watch this. You know what I'm saying? So it is a form of censorship in a way. I mean, look what they just did with Huawei. You know what I'm saying? United States had Canada arrest one of the CEOs of Huawei. You know what I'm saying? And they punish anybody who says, if you do business with them, we're not going to do business with you. We're going to sanction you. So it is a form of censorship in itself. But I want to talk about how all this stuff got started and what's really going on, because there's a facet that we never talk about right now. And just voting up this whole war in Afghanistan was very, very, I don't know why it wasn't a historic moment, why it didn't hit the front page. People yelling and screaming. We had a chance to end the war. We've been there for 20 years. You know, you got 22 kids killing themselves every day from PTSD coming back home from this war. And most IED deaths happened in Afghanistan. People don't know that. They thought it was Iraq. Yeah, there was a lot in Iraq, but now it's in Afghanistan because that's where we still have a serious presence. Now, we have to talk about how we got started over there in 1979 when Russia went in, pretty much what the United States did. And a little bit before that, we funded a facet called the Mujahideen. And I got this beautiful article up from ER Services. Now, they also push back in one sense when they start talking about Osama bin Laden, but it's pretty much what they talk about: learning the objective, discuss the ties between the United States and the Mujahideen. And the key points are, although U.S. President Jimmy Carter's focus was more on the Iran during the months before the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, he initiated a covert program through the CIA to financially support Afghan rebels, the Mujahideen, in July 1979. So we talk about Jimmy Carter, who was one of the best ideologues of our time. We say, you know what I'm saying? He's great. We always kind of look at the Carter Institutes that goes around and follows these elections. We rely on them. We love Jimmy Carter building houses. And he even had his problem with dealing with the military-industrial complex and the deep state and the intelligence. You know, they forced him to push forth with this program, which the Mujahideen eventually became the Taliban. A faction of the Mujahideen became Al-Qaeda, who attacked us. So we aided them. And why did we do it, fam? Because we wanted them to geopolitically hurt Russians. We actually supported the Mujahideen to kill Russian soldiers. So the fact that we have this whole narrative that, Putin's paying money to have our soldiers killed is kind of beyond hypocritical, fam, because we've been doing it for so long. Do you want to say anything before I talk about the invasion real quick?
It's just typical of the U.S. to gaslight. We're gaslighters. we're one of the worst gaslighters out there, because what we do is we take what we do to other people and turn it around and say they're doing that to us. It's just funny.
And
it's sad.
Same behavior too. We did this behavior in Afghanistan with the Mujahideen. We did it in Syria,
we mean the military-industrial
complex. So the CIA, the Pentagon, all those people. You know, the intelligence, the deep state, whoever you want to say, all these unelected officials who've been appointed by presidents that are still in office, that are really controlling stuff, that have really been pulling the strings for a long time.
That's why the people like saying 2024, who are we going to run? Like, it just gets to me, because it doesn't matter who you run as long as we're not attacking the core problem of the system. Like, you could even Bernie Sanders would have faced the same exact issues, and it could have been really horrible for the movement. So you can't just expect a figurehead to do it when they're not in control.
Yeah. And even still, where the president has the most power, which is foreign policy, where they can really do things, especially since the AUMF has given the president more power.
But
it's
they
still
do
the
what
hardest.
The military-industrial complex does every single time.
Because anybody who takes that on, fam, they end up dead, right? I mean, Kennedy, Lincoln, taking on the banking system, you end up dead. Bobby Kennedy was one of 2 senators killed. End up dead because he was looking right at Vietnam and looking right at poverty. 2 areas you can't mess around with their dollars and cents, the deep state. It says, after the Soviet Union invasion in December 1979, which was a surprise to Carter, the CIA expanded the program, codenamed Operation Cyclone, and began providing weapons along with money to the Mujahideen through Pakistan intelligence services. Operation Cyclone was one of the longest and most expensive covert CIA operations ever undertaken. More than $20 billion in U.S. funds were funneled into the country to train and arm Afghan resistance groups. The U.S. built Stinger anti-aircraft missiles, supplied the Mujahideen in very large numbers beginning in 1986. It struck a decisive blow to the Soviets. Fam, it says right below it, the Stingers were so renowned and deadly that in 1990, the United States conducted a buyback program to keep the unused missiles from falling into the hands of anti-American terrorists, an effort which was covertly renewed in the early 2000s. And then the last part, it says, conspiracy theorists, and this is, I love this, conspiracy theorists have alleged that Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda were beneficiaries of the CIA assistance, a claim which is refuted by many experts, which I'm not going to get into that part right now, because I would push back about at that part right there, and what Osama bin Laden's whole role was, and how he was a lead of Saudi Arabia, and his family, the money he had, and how he recruited for the CIA. I don't want to get into that, but what we see over here, pretty much what we did was we armed the Mujahideen to the T. They were losing this war against Russia. Russians were slaughtering, a lot of the members of the Mujahideen. We provided these Stinger missiles to them, fam, and it turned the whole war around. They started shooting down these helicopters. They started shooting down these jets. We provided that for them, and we made the Mujahideen what it is today. When the Mujahideen took over, which became the Taliban, it was one of the most repressive governments ever. So was it worth it for us to fund terrorists now, who became these are the craziest extremists? Was it worth it, fam? And guess what? We're doing it today. We're doing it right now. Is that right, or is that something we should be paying attention to?
Obviously, a lot of people still don't understand 9/11 and what happened. A lot of people still don't want to believe that. And I'm not even going to get into the 9/11 was an inside job thing, but technically, when you are funding terrorists who are then going to come back and attack you, and it's all for interest, and everybody knows the game plan and what's going on, it's obviously a created conflict in order to get resources. So in a way, yes, 9/11 was an inside job in that way. Like, people can go on and on about the demolition and all of that. To me, that's not as important as the mechanisms behind what led us into one of the deadliest and costliest wars that we are still in. Even if we're not constantly hearing about it, even if we're not constantly talking about it, that doesn't mean that we don't have people there. We're not constantly sending more troops and constantly sending more money. We just approved $740.5 billion in a defense budget. We just approved that, and they still tell you that there's no money for education, healthcare during a pandemic. They still have only given Americans $1,200, and a lot of people didn't even get that. So I don't understand why people are not out in the streets protesting that. And the reason that I've seen that I think that's not in people's eyes is because not enough people still know. Like, people in our bubble might know, but I think a lot of Americans are still under the guise that 9/11 was necessary because we needed to protect our interests and we needed to protect us from terrorism. And once people realize all these things, once all of these things become mainstream knowledge, then people are going to say, holy crap, like this is shitty. And also, as things continue progressing with this pandemic and how they continue to like screw the American people over, people are going to start putting two and two together. And when you're affected directly in your pocket, you're economically affected. Unfortunately, not everybody's as empathetic. And too many people are too focused on trying to survive. Once it affects them directly is when we're going to see mass protests. But I mean, we really do need to see people out there, because this is not okay. Yeah. And it's not been okay for a long time. But
I think you really hit to the point too there, fam. The solution to the problem is education and economics, right? If you have a society that's very is undereducated, you know what I'm saying? Well, they're undereducated too as well, you know what I'm saying? Not only when I say education, what happens in the schools, what happens in mainstream media.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? The mainstream media is different. You think about 1968, the way the anti-war movement was out there. They were in the streets. Well, why don't we have that going on right now? We have a war where we've been there for 20 friggin' years, and we got 9 other countries we can point to, and our bases are expanding. And yet we can't get in the streets for that one. It's kind of weird. Well, one of the reasons it's the lack of education, the stress of economics, that everybody's working 2 or 3 jobs. You know, my mother was telling me the other day, and I want to say good luck to my mom. My mother is in surgery right now. I'm praying for you, Mom. But we were talking about the other day, the economics nowadays. My mom was like, you know, kind of saying, well, what about all these jobs that are created? I said, it's not the fact that we have all these jobs that are created. It's the fact that these jobs don't pay anything, and you have to have 2 or 3 jobs just to make a living. So you're going to just do your work, go home, and then check out, get a beer, watch something on TV, pass out, get up, and do the next thing over again.
You're gonna listen to the news that says the immigrants are taking your jobs. When it's the corporations that are outsourcing for slave wages in other countries that are taking your jobs. Nobody wants to talk about that. But that's why I'm so against corporations, because they do this for profit.
Yeah.
And then they're taking jobs away from they're the ones taking jobs away from American people.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you know, and even the way that language is going right now, where a lot of people are blaming China for taking their jobs. Let me tell you, as Peter Lavelle was saying it the other day, China's not the one they took advantage of the American elites that wanted to come over there and benefit off their profits.
Of course they're going to take advantage of it, because it's a business to them.
Exactly.
And they've embraced capitalism. A lot of people forget to mention that.
Yeah.
China has embraced capitalism to a T. I mean, their middle class is as capitalist as ever.
Yes.
They have a lot of money. That's something that we don't have here. We don't have a middle class with a lot of money here. Yeah. We have a very, very small middle class, and it's getting smaller by the minute.
Because it's kind of, they've let private markets come in, but they still have a communist-based system, you know what I'm saying? So they've taken the best out of it. And also they took advantage of all those decades of, you know, American goods. They made the goods there, and they sold them here in the United States, a lot of those goods. So there's a lot of people who enriched themselves in China, and now they're buying up all the assets with that money. But is that their fault? No, I mean, it was our fault because we signed NAFTA. We shipped our jobs out there. We killed the heartland of American, you know, production over here in the Midwest.
Which is why you're not like, Biden isn't guaranteed any votes, because he comes from the administration that did a lot of the damage with NAFTA. So
we get back to Afghanistan. We understand that, number one, there's 2 major reasons why we're in Afghanistan, fam. Number one, the geopolitical push against Russia, that we want to hurt them in any way, shape, or form. And number 2, we say resource extraction, right? Well, what does Afghanistan have more than any other country, fam?
Opium.
That's right. The opioid addiction, which we talk about this now. I've gotten some crazy statistics, and that's just another way of the elites killing off a lot of people in the United States. You would be surprised, fam, how many people die every year of opioid addicted. It's a serious problem. And all that opium comes from where? Afghanistan. Here's the 4th highest opium seizure in 2018 reported from India. And it just talks about all the opium that comes out of here. The 4th seizure of opium in 2018 was reported from India after Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, according to the latest World Drug Report of the United States Office of Drugs and Crime. A maximum of 644 tons of opium was seized in Iran, followed by 27 tons in Afghanistan and 19 tons in Pakistan. In India, the figure stood at only 4 tons in 2018. In the terms of heroin seizure, 1.3 tons, India is the 12th position in the world. So, I mean, the opium that's coming out of Afghanistan is ridiculous. And this is why I thought that Donald Trump was never going to make that deal. But I think he was trying to make a deal where he was able to keep the opium fields and then pull out maybe. I don't know. We don't know what's going on there. But we have to talk about the fact that we are taking all that opium out of there. That was the main reason why we were in there. A lot of people talk about why did we go to Vietnam? There was a lot of resources, a lot of silver, a lot of tin, a lot of mines over there. We wanted those resources. Well, hey, we've been in Afghanistan for a long time, and we've been taking the opium out of there, bringing it back to the United States, and killing our citizens. And it's all done at a major profit, fam. A lot of people are making billions of dollars off the opium in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I mean, Big Pharma is involved.
Yeah,
100%. And we have massive addictions to opiates, especially in poor states in the Midwest. Ohio has one of the largest. I mean, West Virginia. You can go through Middle America and see how that drug has destroyed many people's lives. I mean, it continues to destroy. It's one of the things that I think even it was so bad that the presidential candidates were asked about it in a recent debate. That is how bad it is. And again, it's Big Pharma has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Big Pharma is another one of those lobbyists.
Right.
Lobby the hell out of our government. Big Pharma, military-industrial complex. There's so many different ones. Now, fam, we know there's also, we have Russia geopolitical interest, opium and stuff like that. But the vote in the Senate the other day was also something more. It was more than just those two reasons. It was also about really kneecapping the AUMF. And it says war on terror survives Rand Paul's attempt to end it. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, that this vote in particular was not just about pulling out our troops out of Afghanistan, fam. It was also about doing away with a law that's been implemented since 9/11, when they gave George Bush the power of the AUMF, the authorized use of military force, which allows him to wage war without even getting consent from Congress. And this vote was also about kneecapping that, and they just let it go. So you hear the resistance, yet they're going to still vote to allow him to have the power to wage war whenever he wants. So this whole oppose Trump, they give him what he wants when he wants it, fam.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's got to be pointed out that this is something that's very, very serious right here. The fact that we couldn't kneecap the AUMF.
No, they don't want
it's
to.
Sad.
Well,
it's sad.
Well, there's no opposition to war in Congress. In fact, there is a unified force to go to war and profit as much from imperialism at every turn from our leaders in Congress. The vast majority of them, the ones that do not push for war, are too few to make an impact. This is why, again, our power is not in the electorate right now. We can continue doing little things here and there to make sure that we have eyes and whatever. But our power right now is outside the electorate, because if you start a massive anti-war movement or a massive whatever, like defund the military-industrial complex, which would really take care of a lot of things, to be honest. That is an arm of the police. The police are an arm of the military-industrial complex. So technically that would really, you would be able to fund so many things, from education to healthcare to debt relief, all of it.
All of it.
From cutting our military-industrial budget in about half. That's at least. I think that's But in order for us to do that, we need a massive people's movement, because whenever it's just one figurehead, they eliminate those people and they continue as is. And this whole game between Democrats and Republicans is just a game. I don't buy it for a second. They go and tell you that Biden is Antifa, that Biden is a commie. The right says that. Do you really think the right doesn't know that Joe Biden is a Republican? I mean, he's worked with Republicans forever. He's been a conservative the majority of his life. There's no way they don't know that. And then simultaneously, the Democrats do the same thing. Oh, look, Donald Trump, he loves Russia. He loves Putin. Yeah. It's like, really? Like, they know like that they both want war with Russia. They both want war with China. They know this more. The Democrats seem right now more war hungry. Some of them.
When it comes to Russia.
When it comes to Russia.
It's
but
like
they're
Democrats,
using
Russia.
it's like I don't buy this whole thing. I think it's just a way to get people to be fear induced and to vote the lesser of evils. Because if you're you're picking one team or the other, you're not really focused on who's behind that. So
let me read this passage. Johnny has it up. It's in the right spot. On September 14, 2001. Now, shortly after 9/11, Congress passed, with only one dissenting voice, you know who that was, Barbara Lee, the authorization for the use of military force against those who attacked the U.S. 3 days before. Since its passage, the U.S. has conducted drone strikes and commando raids throughout most of the Islamic world, and in Afghanistan, the U.S. has waged the longest war in its history. They had a chance to end it the other day, fam. They did not. I think you hit it on the nose, the way they play this whole F Trump, and then you get the neocons, what they say with their sentiment. It's like back and forth. Like, we really need to break this two-party duopoly. They are both the same friggin' party. Yeah. It's theatrics. It's worse than the WWF.
Yeah,
total, you know what I'm saying? And it's just a shame that nobody was really. I mean, listen,
no, it really is. Yeah,
yeah, it's
right.
like WWE. I mean, really, it is. And to see Rand Paul make that speech the other day. You want to end the war? Up and down. You get to vote. You get to say you want to end the war today. They failed miserably, and it went quietly in the night. The mainstream media didn't say anything about it, really, fam. They did talk about the bounty. Everybody went crazy when it was all about the bounties, you know what I'm saying? But nobody talked about this vote. Nobody talked about this vote, and it's a shame. And then Liz Cheney in the House also put up, with the help of Democrats over there, with Seth Moulton, another war hawk. We have all these war hawk Democrats. They also put up roadblocks over there. Nothing was said. Nothing was done. And it went quietly in the night, fam. So it's... it's a shame. And speaking of, we have to stop. We have anytime, when it comes to China now too, the yin yang situation. I want people to look into Xinjiang and what's going on in Western China. And just, yes, are they handling it in the right way? We can argue that, but we can't ignore the fact that the Western influence with funding jihadists is something that we do. We've been doing it. Obama did it. He did it in Libya. He did it in Syria. You know what I'm saying? They've been doing it in China. They did it in Afghanistan. All these presidents have gotten in line to do that for geopolitical interest, and we have to call that out. That NED board is all over that Hong Kong Freedom and Decency Act. Okay, how do we say we can call out China's hypocrisies and their authoritarianism if we're funding evil facets, fam, against them? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm saying that we can't do one until we stop doing the other. Am I wrong to say that?
Well, that's another time for another discussion because we could go on forever about that.
Okay. Well, let's get off that. Let's get on to the next thing. While you guys were on vacation, I was out there doing
pasta. I'm going to slap you.
I'm just kidding. What do you mean? It's just joking, guys.
They don't know, though. They don't know.
Everybody knows that I am joking. All right, so let's go to the next thing over here. Vanessa Guillen, the whole story with Vanessa Guillen. Remains found in Texas to be confirmed of the slain soldier, Vanessa Guillen. Fam, you got any opinions about this right now?
No, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying.
I think it's just horrible. I mean, I know that this has been happening for a long time. You could go back to even Chelsea Manning and that whole situation. Don't ask, don't tell. I mean, just the fact that we even had that policy in our government is disgusting to me. I didn't realize the implications. Obviously, I was extremely young, but I just, the whole thing, like the way women have been treated in the military, women have been told to keep quiet is gross. And again, it's the military operates just like the police. The police operate just like the military. It's like all the same. We're going to cover up each other's bullshit. We're going to protect each other. You can't rat us out. It's that same mentality that continues.
Yeah, it says remains found in Texas last week have been confirmed of those of Army Specialist Vanessa Guillen, who was thought to have been killed by a soldier who later died by suicide, the military said. They approached the man. He shot himself. He killed himself. She had made reports. She was pretty much ignored, fam. And this happens in the military a lot. You want to talk about sexism? Oh, my God. It's in the military big time. And I feel sorry for any females trying to report stuff because they are chastised, they're ignored, they are retaliated against by way of rank, by way of pay, by way of duty. And this woman cried out for, this gentleman who was really harassing her. At one point, he came into the shower where she was at, and she had to ask him to leave, and he just refused to leave. I mean, and the fact that they don't react on these situations, they just blow them off. This leads to a lot of deaths, and unfortunately, this lady was killed, carved up, chopped up, and it's a terrible loss, and it's happened in Fort Hood before. They've had a history of this stuff, And it's going to continue to happen until we get in there and change things. Now, I just want to also point out that in this same base, 14 included six Fort Hood soldiers arrested in Temple for a sex trafficking prostitution sting. Now, I didn't even know this was going on, fam. And I heard the lawyer speak for Vanessa Guillen, and she talked about that, and it was just scary.
Yeah.
Just scary about what happens over there. So I went to the protest the other day. Johnny, do you want to show a little clip of it? Johnny will show a little clip of the Native Americans who paid tribute to Vanessa Guillen. Why are we here at Donald Trump's star today? Is this a protest against Donald Trump, or is this the demand that Donald Trump open up an investigation right now to what's going on?
So right now, since that's the puppet in the White House, we come to his star to demand justice for Vanessa, to demand justice for all the people getting killed right now through the police with no reason to be shot, especially when they're unarmed. And we're here to demand justice for all the children and the men being held within them concentration camps, being sprayed with chemicals, as well as the children being molested in those pedophile camps. So today is a day of demanding justice.
Everybody standing here, it is our responsibility to put it all on the line to free our kids from a system that was only created to murder and enslave brown and black children. Now, do I eliminate anybody else? No, because what did I say? It is every single one of you that are here today, black, white, brown, Asian, whatever it may be. It is your responsibility now to come together and flip this system. What are we here for? Say her name! Vanessa Guillen! Say her name! Vanessa Guillen! Say her name! Vanessa Guillen! We are here because she reported sexual assaults, and now she's gone. That's a little, to me that's a little girl, you know, like that's a little girl that, she was only a couple years older than my daughter, who wanted to do something special, that in her mind. Now we have another sister here that survived, a survivor. I'd like for her to share her story.
I'm here today in hopes that we can fight for justice for Vanessa. What was done to Vanessa was unjust. We need to continue to spread the word and continue to fight because Vanessa deserves justice. Her family deserves justice. I'm a veteran, and I'm here to represent the rest of the female veterans who have been victims of sexual harassment and who have been victims of sexual assault. Vanessa was not alone. She was one of the hundreds, maybe even thousands of females that get sexually harassed in the military. We report it, we get laughed at. We report it, we get treated differently. This is real. It happens. I'm a mother now. A mother of two beautiful girls. And I refuse to let anything happen to them. I would die for my daughters. So when I heard Vanessa's mom speaking, it touched my heart. Because I'm a mother and I would do anything for my daughters. So I stand here to support her so she can fight justice for her daughter. It's unjust. Whatever happened to her on the base, it wasn't just two. I'm sure there was hundreds, many that knew about it, and they tried to cover it up.
Right.
So we need to keep fighting. We need to stay united, and we need to keep fighting for justice for Vanessa. I was one of the lucky ones to come home. I was one of the lucky ones to stand here and still speak. But I'm here to demand justice for Vanessa Guillen. Say her name! Vanessa Guillen! Say her name! Say her name! Vanessa Guillen! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! Say her name!
That's pretty much it, right? We took to the streets then. We marched several blocks, about a half a mile, maybe close to a mile, actually. It was good marching. They ended up at a bank. It was definitely, speaking to a lot of people out there. You can see what Jonah said. It's about us coming together there right now. It's up to the responsibility for all of us to come together. It was definitely, as we see some of these protests that we go on, the looking at capitalism, the understanding, the coming together that's necessary right now. Because when it comes to imperialism, everybody's a victim. Some more than others, obviously. But we talk about how the military just treats our personnel inside and out. It's disgusting the way they treat women. They use their soldiers as pawn. They lie to them. The whole system needs to be taken down. I think this is kind of important because people inside the military start realizing what's going on themselves.
Yeah.
That's when a lot of things change and go, holy shit, what are they doing to us? How are they using us?
And I think women more than others should definitely use as this also, like, not obviously injustices against women are happening in the military, but also ask yourselves why they're operating like this, why there's so many similarities between the military and the police, because they're built the same way with the same sort of mindset that we protect each other. We do not rat on each other. We aren't going to talk about these things. We're going to bury them under the rug. And then you ask yourselves, why am I doing this? I'm literally risking my life for this country in order to get raped and killed, or potentially just get raped and my life, have traumas because of it. Also traumas from being in the battlefield. Also, all these things that happen to you, is it worth the money you might be getting? Is it worth it? And ask yourselves why. If your reasons for doing this are for having healthcare, having a job, and having a possible education after you're done,
that's what it is,
then it's like, well, shouldn't you have that anyway? Shouldn't your country provide that for you? If all other countries, these are basic things that all other countries are providing to people. In Canada, for instance, their military is laughable in the sense of they don't have the potency like we do, and we constantly make fun of them for it, but they are providing for their citizens, so they don't really need a huge military presence. They have healthcare for all. They right now are getting $2,000 a month for the people who are not working during the whole coronavirus pandemic. They have a government that is more representative right now. Obviously, we have a lot of the neoliberals in government, which is something that is a problem worldwide. But they are like, they have these basic things that we can only long for in America, and that they tell you that it's communism to even want that. Yeah. So you have to start asking yourself these questions, and then eventually you get to the point where you realize the military-industrial complex is there to keep people not as educated, to keep them compliant with the system and make them feel proud of their country, that patriotism, so they are okay pushing war in other countries. And it just gets really bad from there.
Hey Zeus, thank you for Mama Pasta for the super chat contribution, and also Jim Cretinen, thank you for the super chat contribution. It's always appreciated on the couch. Head they win, tails they lose. Heads they win, tails they lose. Yep, That is true. We also have, I believe, and thank you for the 13 people who are over on the ROKFIN. That is awesome. Johnny, if you have seen any new names over there, let me know, and I will send somebody out a shirt because I got some new shirts in. Tulsi Gabbard, John, went over and talked. You got a little video or a clip. Here's a picture right over there. There's a long video. We don't need to show it, but there's Tulsi Gabbard went over, and there's the lawyer you can see on the left. And the lawyer, like I told you, she's representing Vanessa Guillen's family.
Yeah.
The lawyer for Vanessa Guillen, and demanding answers and what she had to go through. And she has a lot of connections. But when she said there's a history of sex trafficking over there, I just kind of like fell off the chair. You know what I'm saying? I was like, what? In Fort Hood? In the military? Yep, it happens. But Tulsi Gabbard went and spoke. Can I read that there? I couldn't hold back my tears as I stood with PFC Vanessa Guillen's family this morning. Their strength, their courage, and resilience in the midst of their pain and mourning is incredible. They drove 24 hours from Texas to D.C. to bring attention to Vanessa's plight. When they arrived in D.C. yesterday, they learned Vanessa's remains were found and woke up this morning to find out the primary suspect had shot and killed himself. The family deserves justice and closure. They deserve answers. Congress must step up. This is important, and investigate what happened to her and why, and who was involved. Like too many, Vanessa told her story. Vanessa told her family she was subject to sexual harassment by people within her chain of command, but she was too afraid to report it for fear and retaliation. I have and will continue to fight for a transparent, independent path to justice for victims of sexual harassment and assault, like the reforms in the Military Justice Improvement Act. Our troops deserve to have faith in their chain of command and in our justice system. Hashtag Vanessa Guillen.
I mean, that's great. I mean, I think it's good, to tackle what the military is doing right now. But I also think we need to tackle the bigger problem, which is the whole, just like how I feel about the police. You can't reform the police. You can't reform the military-industrial complex. It has been operating in a foul way for far too long. We obviously need to, I think, defund the military. That doesn't mean you don't have anybody that serves in the country, because you do, I think, as a country right now in the climate we're in, you do need a military. But there's a difference between needing like a military and then being pro-war. You can have soldiers just like the majority of other countries have them, but they don't engage in war with all these countries. And so I think we need to completely redo the way we have been, the military has been for a long time. I just think people aren't really talking about that yet, but I think that's definitely is a way to, that's the only way I think we're going to get pretty much what we want and domestically.
Well, that's another thing. When it comes to our elected officials too, as well, the ones that support war, we have to start pointing that out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. All the presidents that got elected, you know what I'm saying, the last 3 terms, you know what I'm saying, a lot of people were voting to get rid of our endless war. When it was Obama, the big thing was that we wanted to get everybody out of Iraq. Mm-hmm. The Iraq war was in our face. We were disgusted about it. So we elected a person who we thought would be anti-war, but it turns out he was pro-war, and he just changed the tactics. He brought a lot of troops home, people. And then he went with the drone attacks, and he went crazy, and he expanded to other countries. So we have to chastise and denigrate these elected officials who prop up and, support war. Just like right now we should be calling Dianne Feinstein. If you're in California, get on the horn and call Dianne Feinstein's office and let her know what she did was disgusting and it was wrong. Okay. Anything else on that subject, guys, before we go on to the next one?
No.
All right. Bam. What do you got here?
Okay, so speaking of the Democrats and their special interests, there was a billionaire who helped with Epstein's sort of PR. He helped try to clean up Jeffrey Epstein's image, and he just donated millions into Joe Biden's campaign. And it's kind of hilarious because we can talk about Epstein all day and how Trump is involved, or except Clinton was involved. but the money ties are really there with this guy. So this was a Silicon Valley billionaire who helped rehab the image of sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, is now pouring major cash into the super PAC supporting Joe Biden's candidacy. This is called the Unite the Country PAC. It launched in late October as Biden was posting low fundraising totals, if you guys remember that, when everybody was like, when is he dropping out? It hauled $4.2 million in February. It's according to its newest records, and then the largest donation was $1 million from Lickland founder of the Democratic mega donor Reid Hoffman, who apologized for helping repair Epstein's reputation and for funding a pro-Democrat disinformation campaign in Alabama. I don't know if you guys remember the disinformation campaign in Alabama where the New York Times, exactly, that was the one that the New York Times put out completely false information, all of that. It's all connected, of course, through money ties. And Hoffman, this guy Hoffman, is the PAC's largest donor with $1.5 million in contributions, and of course he acknowledged the help he gave to Epstein, etc. So it's really interesting because a lot of people talk about how Donald Trump is a rapist, sexist, etc. All of this it may be true, okay, but Joe Biden has been accused also of rape, believably so, by Tara Reid, specifically the most graphic of them all. And then we've seen videos of Joe Biden being inappropriate with women. There's so many on the internet you can find, and children in particular. And then you have the whole Clinton, being on the logs of Jeffrey Epstein and all of that. So it's just really interesting how like some people convince themselves that somehow Donald Trump's sexism and rape allegations are worse than what the Democratic Party has done, because a lot of the Democratic Party, what they have done is cover things up. Like Hillary Clinton covered a lot of things up. Kamala Harris was another one. And when we're trying to get Trump out of office because we want to make sure that all these bad things don't happen, you have to realize who's putting money into Biden's campaign. Some of the most vile people, like Bloomberg. Bloomberg is one of the most dangerous people in the world. He's a billionaire that owns so many of the media conglomerates, and he was about to become president. I mean, he had a potential to become president of the United States. He put all his money and all his weight behind Joe Biden. That tells you something. Like, what's the point then? Joe Biden has nefarious people behind his campaign, as does Donald Trump. So really think about that when you're considering one is worse than the other. That's not that there is no one worse than the other. I mean, I just think like
but judges, fam.
What judges?
Look at who appointed. Look at what the Supreme Court judges like Ruth Bader Ginsburg have voted for pipelines. They have voted in favor of war, and they have been the liberal judges. Again, we need to revamp our whole system. You can't just hinge it on the judges. Like, I have zero guarantees that Joe Biden's administration is going to be better than Donald Trump's. Okay. I have zero guarantees of that.
Okay, so the largest donation was $1 million from LinkedIn founder and Democratic donor Reid Hoffman. So I looked up his name on FEC filings, which is the official FEC filings, and I don't know what DigiDem's PAC is, but he's given a lot of money there. 2,800 times 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, it's a lot of money there. DCCC, $58,900, and then $35,000.
Yep.
Nancy Pelosi for Congress, 2,800. Nancy Pelosi Victory Fund, $100,000, and then here's the Unite the Country, $1 million.
Oh, let me guess. So
on February 28th of this year.
So a Silicon Valley guy is supporting Nancy Pelosi. Well, is that a surprise? Oh, no, that's not a surprise. No, it's
with Epstein
supporting
connections.
The elites. Yeah, there's your connections.
With Epstein connections. Yeah. I mean, these are powerful people. And again, if you think them throwing out money, I mean, look at those numbers. I mean, most of you guys have never seen that kind of money. I mean, just to be able to dish out this kind of money, that comes with power.
Holy shit.
That comes with power. There's no way somebody that's dishing out that kind of money has no power. And I'm sure his apology was very vapid. Oh, yes, I apologize for. Are you kidding me? Like Epstein, Democrats and Republicans all have connections because he dealt with all kinds of people that were powerful. And we're going to see that with Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm not trying to make this into a whole Epstein thing because I know you just did a video, but there's so much more to come of that. She has videos of people too. So that's all going to come up. I mean, if she was smart, she saved these thumb drives and set them aside already.
Yeah, she's probably yeah.
I think she, but this is the whole thing. Like, okay, fine, you want to get rid of sexist, racist, pedophile Donald Trump for what? Another one that has worse people behind him too. I mean, it's a toss up as to who's worse. That's not the point. The point is reject this whole system. Reject the whole system. You have a choice to do that. I don't think I just refuse to believe we just have these two choices. That is what they want you to think. Either one of those will be president, more than likely, yes, 100%. But you don't have to be a part of that. You don't have to be manipulated by fear into voting for the lesser of two evils, because nothing will fundamentally change whether Trump or Biden is president. The only thing that I see happening if Biden is president is people just being like, oh, okay, we got Trump out of office. And that is my fear. That I'm not saying I want Donald Trump to remain president, but I'm saying I do think that is a result that could potentially be a result of him losing the presidency. So.
We shouldn't go backwards. You know what I'm saying? Listen, I think it's obvious now to anybody who watches this show, who anybody follows this show, that Joe Biden is the answer to get rid of Donald Trump. It's not the way we want to go. In fact, it hurts us. We take a step back. You know what I'm saying? The only way forward is to get rid of this two-party duopoly and come to a people's party of sorts. We still have the Green Party coming up. Howie Hawkins is expected to secure the nomination, but Jesse Ventura will be speaking, and those delegates maybe go his way. I'm still praying for that miracle. It is unlikely, but I'm praying for that miracle that he comes out of this, and we really have a party that will go after the two-party duopoly that people will pay attention to, because we really need to sack the Republicans and the Democrats. More than anything, we need a third party to come out and really get the message out there and be a representative for actually working people, for everyday people. Both of these parties, they represent their donors. They represent the rich. Donald Trump, his tax cuts, he gave the rich everything. He is, he has increased the bombing in every single one of wars that he was handed over to from Barack Obama. So he's definitely not the way. I
just don't think it's going to come from the electorate. I genuinely think, yes, you can try to build up these third party cadres like Socialist Alternative, like the Green Party, like all these parties coming up. Washington State has their own, the Washington Progressive not Progressive Democrats, the Washington Progressives Party. Like, they have their own party. You can build these things locally and to a state level. I don't think federally things are going to really change, because what I've been seeing, especially traveling, is you can make change happen locally and statewide. Change comes from the bottom up. It does never ever just come from the federal, the national level. It's just not going to happen. I think if we have enough people protesting this right now, protesting the war, protesting the people, Congress people going to their houses, like some of these protesters are doing, talking about capitalism and how it's hurt us, and how the police brutality is an arm of the military-industrial complex, talking about all these things in mass. If people continue protesting like they have, and we're seeing developments spark up from Black Lives Matter to police brutality to the economics of that to other things. It's already happening naturally, and it's just we just need to guide that, sort of.
We have to take that, we have to turn that into an electoral political win. For the right, it was the Tea Party with their movement.
We're not going to have that.
Well, then we're never going to get anything. If it happened on the right, how come it can't happen on the
Because
left?
the whole idea of leftism is to allow everybody's opinions and everybody's ideas to come forth, and in that itself, you have to agree to disagree. Whereas in the Republican Party, they all come together and they all have one mindset, and that's what they were able to do.
No way.
Absolutely.
I don't believe that whatsoever.
100%.
The Tea Party, they had different ideas and different ideologies. The only thing is they took their movement and they made it work inside electoral politics. That's what the left refused to do. Out of the Occupy movement, they didn't push into electoral.
But we're not a monolith. I'm not saying they're all fully a monolith, but we are far more diversified. I am not. There's no way you're gonna get me in a room with somebody like Nancy Pelosi and we're gonna be able to forge ahead. There's no way. That's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
But that's not what happened on the right. They didn't really go. They went out and they picked off people like Nancy Pelosi on the right. They went after Eric Cantor. They got him removed. We have to start doing that. We have to take a Kashama Swant and move her up the ranks even further, and then spread that message from there. The only problem was that our movement on the left, when it came to the squad, they went and joined the party rather than fighting it. So
right.
One way or another, change is not going to happen until we get representation inside those electoral politics to make a decision for us.
I disagree. I mean, I think change can happen in the streets, and that's going to move.
Can you give me an example of how it's worked? Like
the civil rights movement. All of that, without
the civil rights
happening
movement,
in the streets, it wouldn't have happened electorally.
Yeah, but it happened electorally because Johnson signed it into because those parties and those factions
I'm not
moved
saying
them to
it
sign
won't become. I'm saying that has to happen first. You're not going to get these. It would be far too slow to throw all of our effort behind the electoral politics and not take advantage of what's happening in the streets, because that's what drives these politicians to make change. I've seen it happen already in Washington with their Fight for 15, how Shama Sawant was able to make that happen. They were the first state to have $15 minimum wage, and that happened. People were literally mass protesting, literally dedicated to that. Then that caused the change in the electorate. That forced these officials, if you want to stay in power, you have to do this. And that's what forced them to. You're never going to get them to change just by people in a party telling them to do it. Not the state of the way things are right now. I think change comes from the people into the electorates. I don't think change comes the other way around. But
yeah. Well, we've been in the streets for a while, and they better get some. They got to get together. Someone's gonna have to get in a room and make sure we get some good, people in Congress. Shama Sawant was one. No, I don't think it is. I think it's the fact that a lot of the movement itself out there is split, and that's the problem. Because once again, we saw that with the whole kind of Tulsi Bernie kind of thing, is that certain people want their issues put forth, and that when they're not willing to move an inch on it, they're not willing to build bridges on areas where a lot of people can take a populist movement and make it work. And that's the big problem out there, is that you have a groups, these activists out there that want their way or the highway, rather than say, what can we do to make things work where we can get a representative in there.
Well, there's a diversity of that, too. Not everybody feels that way.
But Shama Sawant was a great example. Is they went and said, okay, we got somebody, let's push her through. And the change she has made, we have to emulate that
with
same
the people.
movement here.
She has made that with the people. She used her power as a representative with the people. That is something that AOC could have done. It is something that Bernie could have done more so now.
Yeah.
They didn't do it. And she is an example that should be replicated throughout the nation as to how much change can happen locally and then become a statewide thing. And now the reason we saw California go after Medicare for all, try to get Medicare for all, is because Washington was doing something like that. And we're more likely to have, the way things are now, Medicare for all state by state, kind of like marijuana was adopted state by state, than have a national thing on it. Because again, they're just not going to do it. As long as they don't feel the pressure, as long as they feel like you're voting for them, no matter what they do to you, they have no reason to change. And as long as they continue taking lobbyist money, as long as we continue to have these lobbyists and corporate influences in our government, they have no reason to listen to you, because you're not giving them any money. That's the way the system won't change electorally until we have this outside push. I don't see it happening.
The left also has to get out there. They have to stop getting behind people who do take that dirty money. You know what I'm saying?
But is that the left, or is that the Democratic Party? The Democratic liberals who are getting behind? Because I don't think really the United States has a huge leftist movement. I think it's starting, but I don't really think, I think that the majority of the left that you're talking about are people who vote Democrat no matter what. That's not like the left at all.
You're saying it's not the left, but it's the left in mainstream. And any way you want to look at it, the people on the left tend to move towards Democrats before they move to Republicans. That's the whole movement out there. The anti-Trump movement is go vote for Joe Biden. You know, you hear F Trump, but why don't you hear F Obama? You know what I'm saying? You'll hear that, and then you'll have the League of Women Voters who are saying we got to get rid of Trump, So they push people to the left to go vote for Democrats. And that's kind of the mainstream mentality, not people who are nuanced, who understand the situation. The mentality of the mainstream is that the left is the Democratic Party,
right,
and the right is the Republican Party.
Precisely because that mentality is incorrect is why I fight against being thrown into the ranks of being a Democrat when I'm definitely not a Democrat.
Yeah,
like I just think it's unfair to say that's the left, because it's like we're not really being honest here. Like the left is the left. Like what I consider the left is like not the Democratic Party. Right. And so I think there are some people that, because of what Trump has done, they're like, okay, like I have to vote for Joe Biden. And they can have that opinion. I mean, it's really hard for me to make an argument for people to not vote for Trump or to vote for Joe Biden. Either way, it's hard for me to make an argument. I'm not going to vote shame people on either end. I am going to say, though, that I disagree with voting for either of them because it's not going to change anything.
Yeah. I said in the video the other day, I said I have to stop referring to the Democrats as the left.
Right.
My partner doesn't want me to do that anymore because technically you're right. I mean, Bernie Sanders was that compromise. He is center left in most other countries.
Right.
So the fact is that, we have to call it like it is. I just wish we find a way to find out how we could turn all this movement in the streets into a electoral movement. But then again, I think, like I said, a lot of the issues, and I'm willing to open up and talk about that, about what happened last time, the fact that we get pushed aside just because we're not Medicare for all is our number one issue. That doesn't mean you're not left. You know what I'm saying? And that was the mentality out there, that if you're not Medicare for all, get the hell out of my face. You have to be Medicare for all first before we do anything. And I think that was a bad tactic used by a lot of what I call neo-progressives when they ignored a lot of the civil liberties, our foreign policy, and the money where it comes from.
Well, it's just a mindset because one is immediate and the other one is bigger picture. So Joe Biden is also, we can talk about where his money comes from because Joe Biden's money came from a lot of his foreign policy blunders. It came from these corporatists. And initially when he came into the vice presidency, he had $150,000, and that has vastly increased since he has been there. So he has these consultants that have worked for him. And in 2008, the Obama campaign made a pledge to exclude lobbyists from policy deliberations, and once in office said, quote, lobbyists are not bad people. Then Joe Biden said special interest groups are not bad people, but they are corrosive. Biden was the most modest president in history, coming into office with a net worth of less than $150,000, as I said. But after that, he made big money, profiting from a multi-million-dollar book deal and earning $540,000 annually from the University of Pennsylvania Center named for him. And he didn't teach or anything. He simply continued promoting himself as middle-class Joe. I work for you, not any industry, which is laughable. He did this last year. He tweeted about it. And many people who worked with Joe Biden have been these big consultant agencies and these big consulting conglomerates. And they've been consulting with offshore interest corporations. They've been talking about just committing a lot of foreign policy blunders. And this person said, one of the biggest gaps in ethics law is that we don't require strategic consultants to register as lobbyists. This is Mandy Smithberger of the Project on Government Oversight. This is important. In the United States, they don't require consultants to register as lobbyists, even though consultants are pretty much lobbyists. Mm-hmm. So if you guys recall when Obama was tasked to ending the war in Iraq, Biden supported Nouri al-Maliki. Yep. He was the leader of the leader he knew and rescued the Iraqi prime minister's career, even though it ended up fracturing the country. Then Maliki narrowly lost in 2010. Biden didn't give Iraqi political parties time to broker a new coalition. This, with Biden's endorsement, Maliki gained a second term. He grew more authoritarian, which is now widely believed to have led to the rise of ISIS. Biden ignored experts who were skeptical of Maliki and preferred to glad hand. Quote, he came to the deal with Iraqi politicians like local political kingpins in Delaware or Pennsylvania, said Robert Ford, who was deputy ambassador in Baghdad from 2008 to 2010. So in essence, Biden's foreign policy is a blank slate onto which conflicted advisors from the national security establishment will project actual policies, meaning that because Joe Biden, it really just doesn't really have a good, he doesn't have a good instinct when it comes to foreign policy. He will make policy blunders, or he's just going to have the military-industrial complex do their work because he's not really going to be acting on it. So when you think you're voting for Joe Biden, what you're really voting for is for a figurehead to be manipulated more by the military-industrial complex than, say, maybe somebody like Donald Trump, who sometimes just does what he wants. Neither are ideal, but when it comes to foreign policy, you're going to see the military-industrial complex have more manipulation and more strength behind a Joe Biden presidency than they would under
I think you just have to look to history too. You know, you got Joe Biden on the Senate floor. I think it was the Senate floor just pushing for the Iraq war when George Bush was wanting to go in. I mean, he was sitting there. He was one of the pro. Let's go on in there, along with Hillary Clinton and many others, to go on in there to Iraq. You know what I'm saying? We have history of that. The Ukraine situation, that's got Joe Biden stamped all over it. People tend to forget that was a bloody regime, a regime change, supported by the West, and a lot of people died because of it. And then they kind of turned around and made it look like Russia when it was us, in fact, pushing the West to go over and change the regime. Joe Biden's always behind it. He's a police state type of guy. And he was also the one who wanted a big fence, a big wall before Donald Trump even talked about it.
And Joe Biden also worked with West Exec, and they were partnered with private equity groups and a Google affiliate. So this private equity firm, Pine Island Capital Partners, was incorporated a year earlier by John Kane. Blinken and Flerney joined a startlingly high-profile roster of former policymakers, including 4 retired senators and the former chair of Joint Chiefs. And Thane is an investment banker, had tanked Merrill Lynch and sold it off to Bank of America and paid himself several bonuses along the way. At the height of the subprime mess, he spent $1.2 million remodeling his office, installing 35,000 golden toilet. Oh my God. He seemed like less than ideal partner for public servants. And another partnership was with Google's in-house think tank, Jigsaw. So this was West Exec was one of the consultants that worked with Joe Biden, and they also collaborated with multiple, with Google, with businesses that private consulting firms that had companies offshore, and this was first reported that they collaborated with Jigsaw by The Intercept a while ago. So there you go. Joe Biden and his foreign policy are very, very heavily led by consultants that have pro-war agendas, pro-imperialism, very, very much driven by for-profit. And one of his consultants said that it was very important for the Silicon Valley to have a very good relationship with the White House. They want to maintain this relationship between these for-profit lobbyists with the White House. So.
Almost 270 watchers on YouTube. We had a bunch on ROKFIN. I really like that, guys. 15 on ROKFIN. We love you. Is there somebody new? Oh, I think there is. Andrea, is she new there to the thing? We need Jesse Ventura leading the Green Party 2020. Greater hope of an upset. Hawkins is a very weak candidate. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, bigger things have happened. When you talk about Eisenhower, the way he got elected, he didn't want to run. But some people started nominating him, and he took the process and ran. Jesse Ventura, we're trying to find out if he signed a letter that says that if he gets the nomination, he will take it. And that's the most important thing to pay attention to. Because if he gets the nomination, he'll take it. Then we have to find a way to get him the nomination. But that's up to the Green Party and their members at their convention coming up this weekend. Ron Placone will be doing an hour comedy set on Friday night at that convention. Go to the Green Party's website to check it out if you want to join on in. I think tickets are $100, but it's something to pay attention to. Jesse Ventura will be speaking. We'll see what happens. But if it's Hawkins,
is this live or?
It's gonna be live, but I don't. This is the first time they're doing it online.
Okay, it's online.
And
okay,
the Green Party is really not the most technologically savvy. They don't have the best social media game as a party. So we'll see how they do it. But like I said, Jesse is he's earned the right to speak. He's supposed to speak. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens if the delegates go with Howie Hawkins, or maybe they make a change and swing things over. We don't know. That's something to pay attention to. Dario Hunter will be talking. Sedanam, Dennis, all the candidates, Chad Smith, they'll be speaking, and we'll see what happens. I don't know if they have the right to speak, if the Green Party is going to allow them, but we'll find out what happens. That's this weekend, something to pay attention to. In other news, fam, a big win for the Native Americans and a big win for clean water as the court orders the Dakota Crude Pipeline to shut down, drain its pipes. It's a big win for the Native American tribes in a long-running saga. Fam, it's also a big win for clean water. We know what fracking and oil does to our water. This is something we look at a lot. We just had a water video drop the other day. When it comes to the privatization of our water, people are stealing our water. It's going to be one of the most valuable resources. We need water to live, ladies and gentlemen. This is something to pay attention to, fam.
Funny. Water is life.
Water is life. Tulsi Gabbard, who also spoke at Vanessa Guillen's family's protest and demanding a congressional hearing. She also went to Standing Rock, and she spoke over there as well. So big ups to her today. as the Dakota Access Pipeline. We knew people who went there, fam, and this is just a big win. This shocked the world. Remember when Obama said, we'll see how things play out?
Yep.
You know, Native Americans that were sitting there protecting that land got hit by water hoses and freezing degrees temperatures and rubber bullets, the whole 9 yards. They got gassed. So to see this happen right now, this is big, fam.
It's big, and I think it's going to be one of many battles still to come, because again, like you mentioned, people are privatizing. These consultants, these lobbyists are trying to privatize our water. These private entities of people with a lot of money. If they could, they would privatize air. And that may sound crazy, but I mean we're getting to a point where these resources are we're not even tackling climate change right now at all, because we're so invested in COVID and what's going on, all that. They're not even paying attention to climate change. As long as we continue with our imperialist policies, climate change is going to be doomed, because our actions against it, because that's again, all of those mechanisms, much nuclear weapons, oil, bombs, all of that, the chemicals that go into the air from that are going to really, really hurt us. A lot of the immigration issues that happen are also happening because of climate change. And so when we talk about water, there needs to be a movement to fight, to go out, just like they have fought. Water is life. It's not something that you can just privatize. It's something that is necessary for all human beings, for all life. So you can't back down from that fight.
There's countries like Ireland, I think Scotland, they're trying to do it. They're trying to privatize, nationalize their water. Not privatize, it's going to be nationalize the water. Give it to the people. It's the people's resources. They own it. They should, and that's the same thing that should happen here. I mean, the privatization of water is very, very scary. That you're going to have a corporate entity hold on to water and dole it out when they like to.
And not only that, the contaminants that they go into the people's water, communities of working class people. We've seen several, movies that talk about that, whether it's in California, whether it's in Delaware, West Virginia, Flint, the water isn't safe to drink. It should be safe from the tap. But the things they put in our water, the experiments they use on people, are obviously causing people to have diseases, cancer, etc. All of that, that's all because of capitalism. Again, you're using these people as experiments, as guinea pigs, and of course these people tend to be poor minorities or working class communities.
Chromium-6, they had it up here in the water in California. Somebody just talked about it. In the poor areas too, they, Flint, Michigan, they did it over here. I just want to say what's up to Ivan Tarovsky. Hit us up on the convocouch@gmail.com, as well as Andrea, and I will send you guys out some shirts. You look like new names over on our Convo Couch ROKFIN, and we want to thank you guys who endorsed us on the ROKFIN. For $9.99 a month, you get not only our premium content, you get everybody's premium content across the board, from Jimmy Dore, Ron Placone, Nico House, Graham Elwood, Kim Iverson, the Assange people, the whole fam. They're all there. So please, thank you so much. Hit us up, Andrea and Ivan, and we'll get you some shirts. Johnny, I believe you got your segment coming up right now. Tell us what you got, brother.
Yeah, just a couple little small things I saw on Instagram. So this is one big thing that I saw in Salem, Oregon. During a Black Lives Matter protest, a police officer casually flashed a white power sign at a member of the far-right Proud Boys, who he seemed to be really friendly with.
I
think you both just saw that.
All lives matter.
Does that stay, please?
All lives matter. Every life matters. Your life matters. Your life matters. Your life matters. All of your lives matter. All of you.
So yeah, that's and here's another view. This one has 4 million views on Twitter. So you see that. Yeah. So what does that tell y'all? I mean, thoughts on that, fams?
Well, I mean, the white power sign could be mistaken. It's often mistaken. People always think that it's being flashed constantly, when it may or may not be. But I know for a fact that the police have definitely, in the protests I have been to, even a few years ago, they were protecting the very like pro-cop protesters. They were protecting the Ku Klux Klan. I've seen it happen. So I'm not going to deny the connections between the police and white supremacist groups. There's a lot of connections to be explored there. Even some police have begun talking about how there are those connections. So I think we're just going to see more and more of this come out. Obviously, it's not every single officer. We know that that's not the case, but I think it really, focusing on it though, we need to focus on just, again, the whole defunding the police, because I think if we focus on those things, like as horrible as they are, they're really not going to lead to any change. I think we need to focus on like the economics of defunding the police to make sure that we really take that power away from those people. But I definitely think that there's more of an alliance, because we've seen them. We saw in Seattle, they escorted the
Well, that's the next thing I was going to show. So we were in Seattle on July 4th, and we had an interview that was earlier, so we kind of missed this. But as you can see, police are escorting the Proud Boys who showed up. They didn't show up by the thousands. It looked like
it was like 30,
like 50 people maybe. So police are just protecting them.
Right. I have not seen yet police protect protesters. Now, protesters are protesting for Black Lives Matter and all that. But again, when I saw a protest between those who were protesting the immigration policies of Trump, or just the immigration policies of the United States, obviously, the police were protecting the Ku Klux Klan. They had their hoods on and everything. So I have yet to see the police protect the oppressed. I have seen them more so protect the oppressor. That's my experience. That's why I don't like police. That's why I want to defund the police. That's how I feel, because I haven't seen them on the right side of justice most of the time.
Look at that. I mean, they're literally getting in front of the protesters from even approaching them.
It's the opposite,
would you say,
though, when you have...
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
I think a lot of people are going to say that they didn't want a big brawl going between two groups. So they would try to... That's what they're going to say, to make sure that, God forbid, these two groups start going at it and people start fighting each other.
But it's always, like, I have not seen them instead, protect the protesters from the... from
the cops?
No, from the alt-right nationals, because there have been other instances in Charlottesville. Yeah. They literally were protecting the white supremacists. I mean, you can't deny that.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying in this particular situation, it looks like they were just making sure that there was no skirmish going on, because if both parties start going into it, they're going to get serious fights going on. So, I mean, that's what they're going to say. Yeah. Go ahead.
Next thing was that in Georgia, Stone Mountain Park, hundreds of armed black militia members, part of the so-called Not Fucking Around coalition, marched through Stone Mountain Park near Atlanta to protest against white supremacist groups like the KKK, for who they also had a message. The NFAC took to the Stone Mountain Park because it's the birthplace of the Ku Klux Klan, referring to how the racist hate group was restarted there in 1915. Stone Mountain Park also has a Confederate memorial, which is a 90-story high bas-relief sculpture carved into a sprawling rock facing Atlanta, and is perhaps the South's most audacious monument to its pro-slavery legacy still intact. So let's look at this.
Yeah, I saw this. This is crazy.
So an important thing was that the sculpture, which I'm going to look up in a second, the carving was done by a KKK sculptor who also carved up Mount Rushmore, pays tribute to slave owners General Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davis, and Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson. And it's the mountain is a notorious meeting place for the KKK to this day, and despite its racist and violent section, still hasn't been banned. I wanted to show another clip here.
I want the heart of the Ku Klux Klan to hear me no matter where the fuck you are. I'm in your house.
That's right.
Where you at? You made a threat. We don't threaten. We don't scare. Cause we don't care.
And we don't fuck around.
You threaten us, we gonna threaten you.
That's right.
You said you gonna start shooting white people at 8 o'clock, we gonna start shooting, black people at 8 o'clock, we gonna start shooting white people at 8:05. Threat, counter threat. Cause threats don't mean shit to us. Y'all been threatening us since Birmingham. I ain't seen shit. I want the heart of the Ku.
Damn, I didn't see that video.
Interesting on that. What do you guys think of that?
Damn.
Well, I mean, I think that's unfortunate too, because if you know, the Ku Klux Klan threatening them and they retaliate, it's only, I mean, I think it's only gonna lead to more bloodshed, and it sucks. But they have been persecuted for years. I mean, I'm not gonna tell people how to protest. It's not my place. I always say that, you know, protest however you like. But I think once you start enacting the, what is it, eye for an eye thing,
yeah,
it can get really messy and go bad for the cause, because they're just going to paint them as violent.
Counter threat, because threats don't mean shit to us. Y'all been threatening us since Birmingham. I ain't seen shit. When it's July the 4th, and all you scary ass Negroes that pass that shit around, look at what the fuck you did. You made blacks come out. I don't see no white militia. So to the boogie boys, the 3%ers, and all the rest of you scared ass rednecks, we here. Where the fuck you at? We in your house. Let's go. NFAC, motherfucker.
I think it's more of a call to show that they're not scared more than anything else.
Very, very Black Panther-ish. You know what I'm saying? You know, and that's why they got chastised. The fact that, like, listen, we're going to stand up in arms against those groups who are standing up in arms against us. You know what I'm saying? And that's like when, you know, have every right to protect yourself. Yeah. When, you know, people are coming after you and they're suppressing you, you know what I'm saying?
That's why there's like a lot of socialists who are for guns, pro-gun socialists, because their whole thing is like, if you're gonna militarize the police and have the military have all these arms, then you're not gonna militarize the oppressed people, you know, whether they're poor, whether they're black, whatever. This is why people believe in arms still, because they don't trust the government. So it goes back to that whole thing, like, show your power as much as you have.
Johnny, what else you got?
Other than that, yeah, everybody go check out our recent premiered interview. Some people saw it live. I think we had like 50 people on.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back.
Fee caught up with Joshua Collins, young man running in Washington Congressional District 10. And we just had like a new style of interview here where
is an issue. You know, we've had problems in my neighborhood as well.
So
yeah, check it out, guys.
Check it out.
Definitely.
Finally got Joshua Collins. Got to hunt him down, huh?
Yeah, I hunted him down in a Tacoma area. It was a great interview. He's very much, like I said, he's very much in line with the way I think things should happen. And something to note about that area, that district he's running in, there are progressives and then there are Republicans, but they're not your typical Republican necessarily. There's going to be some Republicans that might agree with Medicare for all, that might see the hate Democrats because of the economic way they've handled things, that he could potentially get on his side, because he's not running as a Democrat. He's running as a essential workers party. And so in Washington, they have this thing where they are able to get on the ballot far easier than in other states. And so he potentially could do something historic. I mean, it's going to obviously be an uphill climb, but I think if there is anywhere to do it, it's in these pockets that are like very similar to like West Virginia, where you have some of those people that hate Democrats so much that if he makes it into the jungle primary, the top two, he could potentially win. And I think, you know, he's very confident of that. And he has a lot of volunteers. He has also had quite a great social media following, especially on TikToks and such like that. So, I mean, I think the fact that somebody's doing it is a really cool idea.
Ballot access is another way. We look at, you know, if you want to make a change, like, you know, right to the legislation, go and get a ballot initiative, you know, put on, or a referendum, put on your state, your counties, local, you know, next election. So therefore we can change these things, get ballot access for smaller parties to get on and get votes, to be able to run. And that's something we should look at too as well. We need to be looking at every single angles and looking at groups that come up with good suggestions and stuff. But we have a long way to go to changing what's going on in our legislation. Johnny, anything else?
Yeah, just responding to Monarch in the chats. NFAC is the group, Not Fucking Around Coalition, I think it is.
Yeah.
And they are not wearing black robes. They're just wearing all black. And then I kind of want to emphasize this comment here. It says, white supremacists / Trump supporters is losing their minds on Twitter, asking, where's the cops to stop these black men with guns in an open carry state? They're scared of seeing black people organized, carrying guns, and will fight back. Guess it's not funny anymore when the rabbit has a gun, too.
Well, that's the thing.
Interesting.
That's the thing. Like, you can't have it both ways, right? Like, if you're going to be pro-gun for all Americans, that includes black Americans, too. It's just not something you see every day. You don't see them armed, and I think that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, and I think there is a lot of racism that we haven't dealt with in this country because it wasn't that long ago that all this stuff happened. It really hasn't been that long.
Yeah, and when, no one said shit about the white... The group of white men holding assault rifles going to the Capitol. Police
we said shit. We're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
but now it's like, I guess, well, if they're allowed to, every American,
they have to go right over there.
So you reap what you
now,
sow.
Now, if they start arresting these people, then that you're going to see,
Yeah.
But they really legally they can't. I mean, they're a regular person just because they're black. They're carrying an arm. Oh well, we don't usually see that.
Jilly Love, by the way, said they're grooming Liz Cheney to be the Republican president in 2024. I've been saying this for a couple months now. That's what they're going to do. The establishment, they're going to try to get the Republican establishment, they're going to try to get the first female president in by way of
that's hilarious.
Liz Cheney. I mean, she's over there in the House. She's working with those moderate Democrats. They're called moderate. I call them right-wing war-hawking Democrats.
Everybody's
she's working with them. So,
yeah.
And I said, look for the left. Oh, no, the left. The Democrat establishment, not the left. I'm sorry. Look for them to push for Mitt Romney. Those are my new two choices for predicting what's going on in 2024. Johnny, that's it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for those over there on our ROKFIN. There's 16 viewers, Ivan and Andrea. Please hit us up, and I will send you out some shirts. And thank you for the over 100 Patreons we have now.
Yay.
Guys, if you can afford to be a Patreon, go on over to our Patreon. Help us out. Anything you can give, $1, $2, it's all appreciated.
Yeah.
For Pasta Jardula,
Fiorella,
Johnny Sue on the 1s and 2s.
Convo out.